We've got more beginner Magic the Gathering decks for only $10, so let's pop that Magic the Gathering cherry. Am I allowed to say that? We're good. And completely unprompted, stop drinking. It's ruining your life. This is a random video about Magic, and this guy's telling you to stop drinking. It must be the world cosmically trying to tell you to stop doing that bad thing. It's bad for you. Did I do the non-drinking PSA again? Damn it. That's why I was never cool in college. I didn't go to college. Now listen, if you've been wanting to get into Magic, but the Moby Dick for you of this game is, I can't afford that shit, I've got some good news for you. If you don't know how this series works, we have done one video before this one. If you want to check that out, it's up in the top right corner over there. We're going to be making 4 decks. The point of these decks is that each of them are $10. That's right, for all 100 cards, they are $10. So you can drop $40 and buy you and 3 of your friends you've been wanting to introduce to Magic decks that are not only very easy to play, they also cover the bases of aggro, midrange, control, and Voltron, so you can all get a different taste of different perspectives of the game. You can switch decks after each game to see what each person likes. It's a great system, and keep in mind, these decks are designed to play against each other. So if you take these decks against just your run-of-the-mill Commander Precon, they will get absolutely rolled. Again, they're $10. The games are going to be a little bit more grindy, which kind of lets the control deck shine if it can make it to that late stage. But also, since the other decks are a little slower, the aggro deck can slide in and get some early game wins. Midrange also definitely stands a chance, along with Voltron kind of being the one that doesn't get targeted a lot, ends up generating a lot of power and a lot of value, and ends up dealing a ton of damage and taking out a couple players. So they are very well balanced to play against each other. Keep that in mind. But with that in mind, let's move into the aggro list for today. Our aggro commander for our $10 introduce your friends to Magic aggro list is Gev Scaled Scorch, being a black and a red for a 3/2, ward, pay 2 life. Other creatures you control enter with an additional 1/1 counter on them for each opponent who lost life this turn. Whenever you cast a lizard spell, Gev deals 1 damage to target opponent. Our creatures enter bigger. Love that. If our creature is lizard, does damage, which will make further creatures we play enter bigger, because we can deal damage to different opponents with the ping. So let's talk about the lizards. We got Mongoose Lizard being 4 and 2 red for a 5/6 menace. When this creature enters, it deals 1 damage to any target, mountain cycling 2. Gila Corn being a 1 black 1/1 death touch. Gila Courser being a 2 and a red 4/2. Whenever Gila Courser attacks while saddled, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until end of turn. Hissing Iguanar dealing 1 damage whenever a creature dies. Chandra's Pyroling being a 1 and a red 1/3. Whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, it gets +1/+0. And Double Strike, which does include our ping from our commander. Skitter of Lizards being a 1-drop 1/1 haste that enters with an additional 1/1 for each time it was kicked. Reptilian Recruiter being 3 and 2 red for a 4/2. When it enters, choose target creature. If that creature's power is 2 or less, or if you control another lizard, gain control of that creature until end of turn. Glide Dive Duo, 4 and a black, 3/3, flying, bat lizard. When it enters, each opponent loses 2 and you gain 2. Wait a second, that's awesome for our deck. Ravine Raider, 1 black, 1/1 menace, pay 1 and a black. Ravine Raider gets +1/+1 until end of turn. A Gate Blade Assassin. Well, which gate? Be a little bit more specific. 1 and a black for a 1/3. When it attacks, defending player loses 1 and you gain 1. Gastral Thrill Seeker. That's what. Oh, Gastel. Okay, I thought it said Gastral. I was like, that's me, dude. Every night I'm a Gastral Thrill Seeker. Black and a red 2/3. Start your engines. When this creature enters, it deals 1 damage to target opponent and you gain 1 life. And at max speed, it gains Death Touch and Haste. Steam Path Charger is a 1 and a red 2/1 offspring 2 that when it dies deals 1 damage to target opponent. Scorch Bitter deals 1 when it attacks to the opponent. Hellspur Posse Boss deals 2. Posse Boss. That's what they used to call me in high school. 2 and 2 red for a 2/4. Outlaws you control have haste. When Hellspur Posse Boss enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 red mercenary tokens with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Kindle Spark Duo is 2 and a red for a 1/3. You can tap to deal 1 damage to target opponent. When you cast a non-creature spell, untap it. Blazing Rootwalla is your basic 1 red 1/1 that can give itself +2/+0. For 1 red, you can activate once a turn. Greywater's Fixer is 2 a black and a red for a 4/4. Each outlaw in your graveyard has Encore X, where X is its mana cost. And then finally, Laughing Jasper Flint. Creatures you control but don't own are mercenaries in addition to their other types. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top X cards of an opponent's library, where X is the number of outlaws you control. Until end of turn, you may cast spells from among those cards, and mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells. So yeah, lizards. Just playing these lizards and doing the ping from our commander is, from gameplay and testing it, definitely enough to just have our board get huge, tons of 1/1 counters, opponents take tons of damage. But you'll also notice that a lot of our removal in the removal package is like burn or drain and stuff like that, so we can also get more 1/1 counters. So we run stuff like Shock, we run stuff like Lightning Strike, we run stuff like Unlicensed Disintegration because it does 3 damage to the controller, Rakdos Charm to have each creature deal damage to its controller, and Kolaghan's Command to do 2 damage to any target. You'll also notice that this deck runs no mana ramp. We Genuinely do not need it. The mana curve is so low in this deck, and I thought that jamming too many mana rocks and acceleration into these starter decks will make it feel kind of same, and I want them just to get a taste for different themes rather than get a taste for what like this is a really good optimized mana curve in Commander. You know what I mean? I'd rather them be like, ooh, I like going fast, instead of being like, ah yes, 2-drop into 4-drop, 4-drop into 6-drop, my curve is going perfect. They're not going to get that. They're brand new. Past this, we've got some just straight up synergy that works well with the deck that I want to talk about. Zioa Lava Tongue is a black and a red for a 2/2 death touch. At the beginning of your end step, if you descended this turn, each opponent may discard a card or sacrifice a permanent. Zioa deals 3 damage to each opponent who did it. Again, we're gonna have a ton of lizards swinging at people. People are going to block, and then now blocking our lizards threatens people having to take 3 from this girl. I think that's pretty great. Anax, hardened by the Forge. No one likes a hardened Anax. 1 and 2 red for a X3 whose power is equal to your devotion to red. When Anax or another non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 Satyr creature token with this creature can't block. If the creature had 4 or greater power that died, create 2 of those tokens instead. 1/1 counters are going to make our creatures 4 or greater a lot of the time, so we're going to probably get 2 of those things. And our commander does trigger with tokens, so when those 2 things trigger, they will get 1/1 counters if people have lost life. Very good. Similarly, Totentan's Swarm Piper is 1 a black and a red for a 2/3. Whenever Totentans or another non-token creature you control dies, you get a 1/1 rat. Target attacking rat gains death touch until end of turn. Just replace our lizards with rats that get bigger from our commander. It seems good. Murak Nightblade being a 3 and a black, give all your creatures with 1/1 counters on them death touch, which interacts with the 1/1 counters our commander gives. Exava Rakdos Blood Witch being 2 a black and a red for a 3/3. First strike, haste. Unleash, so it can enter with a 1/1 counter on it, but it can't block if it has a 1/1 counter on it. Each other creature you control with a 1/1 counter on it has haste. That's nuts in this deck. Woestrider lets us sack some of our lizards to scry, and Molten Gatekeeper lets us ping each opponent when a creature ETBs, which is absolutely perfect for our commander's 1/1 counter ability. If you want to take a full look at any of these deck lists, full Moxfield links are down below in the description, and with that, let's move on to the Introduce Your Friends to Commander for $10 mid-range deck. So our mid-range list is based around Inga and Asika, being 2 a green and a blue for a 4/4. Creatures you control have vigilance and tap, add 1 mana of any choice of color to your mana pool. Use this mana only to cast creature spells. Whenever you cast a creature spell, if 3 or more mana from creatures was used to cast it, draw a card. Pretty incredible. So all of our early game stuff becomes mana dorks now, as long as they're creatures with Inga and Asika, which we can then use to ramp out mid and late game threats. Absolutely perfect commander for a mid-range deck. So the deck runs 13 pieces of mana ramp, which you might think maybe is a little light if we're focusing that heavily on mana ramp. It's not, because the first package we're going to talk about is early tappers. These are all the different creatures we run in the deck that can come out early and tap by the time Inga and Asika come out to just help us flood huge creatures into play. We got Suspicious Bookcase being a 2-drop 0/4 defender that can pay 3 tap. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. That makes a great mana ramper, great blocker, great evasion piece for late game. Because again, with Inga and Asika, all these creatures are going to be mana dorks as well, including tokens with stuff like Whirler Rogue being 2 and 2 blue for a 2/2. When it enters, put 2 1/1 Thopters into play. Yeah, that's 3 mana dorks for 4 mana in this deck. Pretty good. Elvish Visionary just being a 1 and a green 1/1 draw a card when it ETBs is now 1 and a green 1/1 tap for any color mana, draw a card when it ETBs. Pretty broken. Experiment 1 will get bigger and bigger and bigger over the course of the game. It has built-in protection, and again, 1-drop mana dork. We love that. Spectral Sailor being a 1-drop card draw engine. Coiling Oracle being a 1-drop card draw or mana ramp. Thornwield Archer and Deadly Recluse, both being reach death touchers, which makes great blockers, potentially removal for big important pieces if people do swing at you. And with Inga and Asika, fantastic mana dorks. Joel Rail is fantastic because she's a 2-drop, so she'll just be a 2-drop mana dork. But when you draw your second card each turn, which Inga and Asika will do quite a bit, we create a 2/2 cat, which is more mana ramp. And then we can make our whole board XX is equal to the number of cards in our hand, which again interacts with the card draw from Inga and Asika. Very good stuff. Chitter Spitter will let us make squirrel tokens, sack squirrel tokens to give it acorn counters, and then make squirrels massive for the amount of Chitter Spitter counters, for the amount of acorn counters we have. Just another way to make tokens that Inga and Asika can turn into mana dorks, but also maybe a potential late game win con by making your squirrels massive. And of course, we've got Asika's Chariot being a 3 and a green 4/4 that spits out 2 2/2 green cats, which again, both mana dorks. Keep in mind, most of our card draw, removal, mana ramp are creatures. So like in terms of card draw, we've got Elvish Visionary like we talked about, or Spectral Sailor. In terms of ramp, we've got stuff like Dawn Treader Elk or Yavimaya Elder. And for removal, we've got stuff like Bamboo Grove Archer or Thrashing Brontodon. Tons of bodies. Everything we're doing in the deck probably requires creatures because those creatures can also be mana dorks with Inga and Asika. So just running a bunch of bodies, very important. But all this is leading up to having a ton of mana. What are we going to do with that mana? We're going to play huge huge bombs and way earlier than they should be and use those huge bombs to win the game. So some of the beef that we run in this deck. Sphinx of Uthin being a 7-drop 5/6 flying. When it comes into play, you factor fiction. So you reveal your top 5, an opponent separates them into 2 piles, you pick one to go to the grave, another one goes to your hand. Palaka Worm, a 7-drop 7/7 trample, gain 7 when it enters, draw a card when it dies. Prognostic Sphinx being a 3 and 2 blue, 3/5 flying, discard a card, give it hexproof whenever it attacks Scry 3. Thrix, the Sudden Storm being 3 and 2 blue, 4/5 flash, flying. Spells you cost with a mana value 5 or greater, costs 1 less to cast and can't be countered, sure. A Modi, 3 and a blue and a green, to give all your stuff that costs 6 or more, Cascade. Speaking of 6 or more, Rampaging Baloth, 6-drop 6/6, turns all your lands into 4/4s. Terastodon, 8-drop 9/9 that destroys 3 target non-creature permanent and gives somebody 3/3s to replace them. Endraze Forerunners gives your whole board a +2/+2 vigilance and trample buff for 8 mana. Bonnie Powell, Clear Cutter, is a 6-drop 6/5 that makes a huge bore when it enters. Or something like a Rixmathies being a 4-drop 12/12 that slowly removes counters so it can attack or block, and it's just a mana dork at the end of the day. Should be winning you the game, and keep in mind, if you're playing any of these creatures and you're tapping 3 or more creatures to cast that creature, Inga and Asika will give you a draw a card trigger, so it's not going to be hard to just keep a full hand of threats, play more threats, draw cards from playing those threats. It's seriously a Simic mid-range value deck if I've ever seen one. I think a very good introduction to the mid-range strategy, and from the playtest I've done, stands up great against the other decks. So, if you're interested in this deck, we've got a full Moxfield link down in the description. With that, let's move on to the Introduce Your Friends to Commander for $10 control list. The commander of our control deck is DJ John Aaronickus. John Aaronickus' Shattered One is 2, a blue and a black for a 3/3. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent gains control of up to 1 target creature you control. Put 2 1/1 counters on it, tap it, it's goaded for the rest of the game and cannot be sacrificed. Whenever a creature you own, but don't control attacks, you draw a card. Now, I get what you're going to say. You're probably going to say, this is a little confusing for a new player. I think it is easily graspable, though, to be like, own and control. And keep in mind, the idea of these is there's going to be one player that has played Magic. You're introducing your friends with these decks. So the person that has played Magic, that seems like a pretty easy explain. To be like, oh, own means that they physically are your cards, like they are a part of your deck that you own. Control is whoever's battlefield it is under. That's super easy to explain. So you'll be like, your deck, you play small creatures that are evasive, and then you give those to other people, and it's goaded, which means it cannot attack you, and then you just force opponents to swing at each other. I think that it sounds more complicated than it is. I've play tested it, nothing arose that was like, ooh, that's going to be too complicated for a new player. Even something like goad, like mass goad all your opponent's creatures. It's not that difficult to explain to a player. Oh, that just means they have to attack with their creatures, they can't attack you. Look at that. Half a second. And I can't remember if I recommended one of the decks to pilot for the Magic player in the first one of these videos, but if you are the person that already plays Magic and you're getting these to introduce your friends to, I would probably recommend you running this one, just because Goat is a little bit complicated, but so is some of the how you bring home the game late game with this deck. But Control inherently is a more complicated deck type to run, so some of that stuff's unavoidable. So the name of the game here with John Aaronickus is to be giving your opponents creatures that are either really bad, have bad effects that are debuffs to your opponents, or creatures that are really evasive, so you can just give them 2 counters, and they pretty much can't be blocked, and your opponents are just going to be swinging at each other with creatures that can't be blocked, dealing tons of damage to each other. So, first place to start, these are the creatures that we're going to be giving our opponents with John Aaronickus. We've got Evil Eye of Orms by Gore, being a 4 and a black 3/6. Non-eye creatures you control can't attack. Evil Eye of Orms by Gore can't be blocked except by walls. So if you give this to a player, none of their non-eye creatures can attack, so you can pretty much lock someone out of attacking with this card. Pretty control-y, if you ask me. Or what about Evil Eye of Urborg, being 4 and a black for a 6/3. Non-eye creatures you control can't attack. Whenever Evil Eye of Urborg becomes blocked by a creature, destroy that creature. Yeah, the eye boys are pretty good. So is Flesh Reaver. 1 and a black for a 4/4. Whenever Flesh Reaver deals damage to a creature or opponent, Flesh Reaver deals that much damage to you. So Flesh Reaver, keep in mind with John Aaronickus, we'll stick 2 1/1 counters on this thing, making it a 6/6 that has to attack. Yeah. So have fun taking tons of damage, both guy who has Flesh Reaver and whoever Flesh Reaver is attacking. We've got Geode Golem that we can give an opponent to let them keep casting their commander from the command zone for free to make some friends at the table. Halo Forager is great because it lets us dump X to recast an instant or sorcery out of anyone's graveyard when we cast it, and then past that, it's just a 3/1 flying that we can give to somebody with John, buff it up into a 5/3, goad it, Feels good. Similarly, Mausoleum Wanderer could be a counterspell, but we just end up giving it to somebody else as a 3/3 with flying. And keep in mind, John Aaronicus makes it so that creature can't be sacrificed, so the opponent won't be able to use the Mausoleum Wanderer's sacrifice ability. Picklock Prankster is just a basic 1 in a blue, 1/3 flying vigilance, but in this deck it's a 3/5 flying vigilance that's goaded for the rest of the game. I really like Reassembling Skeleton because you can give it to someone as a 3/3, goad it forever, can't be sacrificed, and if it ends up dying in combat, you can pay 1 in a black, return it to your board, and then give it to somebody again. Similarly to Halo Forager, Skin Render's great because it enters, does a powerful 3/1/1 counter effect, and then just becomes a 3/3 that we can give as a 5/5 to another opponent and goad it. Spectral Sentinel, 1-drop 1/2, protection from multicolor. Steel Hellkite, 6-drop 5/5, flying, pay 2, give it 1/0, pay X, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value X whose controller was dealt damage by Steel Hellkite. You know opponents are going to want to use that. Tormented Soul, 1-drop 1/1, can't be blocked. Triton Shorestalker, 1-drop 1/1, can't be blocked. Vampire Nighthawk, 3-drop 2/3, flying, death touch, lifelink, go ahead and make it a 4/5, flying, death touch, lifelink, goaded for the rest of the game, can't be sacrificed, give it to an opponent. And Wretched Amarid, being 1 in a black for a 3/3, whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you lose 1 life. Yeah, have fun whoever gets this thing. Past this, we run some straight up effects to just goad opponents' creatures, because giving them our creatures and goading them is nice, but they're going to still have some threats on the board that we're going to want to goad. So we run both of the impetuses and both of the vows, which can enchant creatures and goad them. And finally, the most complicated package of the video for sure is what I like to call the you're getting divorced package, okay? We run a small 5-card package that can either individually blink, mass blink, or just gain back control of all of our creatures that opponents control. Because if you blink something that the opponent controls that we gave them with John Aaronicus, it will re-enter under its owner's control, which is us, so we will get that creature back. So in a 1v1 situation, these blink spells, once you've whittled down the other 2 players and it's you and somebody else, are a great way to reset your board, gain back control of all your creatures, or something like Coveted Crow, I think is what it's called. Coveted Raven? That ain't a falcon. Coveted Falcon, I guess, which will ETB and just gain you back control of all your creatures. I call this the divorce package because in the blink of an eye, you'll lose everything you have. If you want to see a full Moxfield link for this deck, also down in the description. And with that, we're going to move on to our 4th and final Introduce Your Friends to Commander for $10 Voltron list. Our Voltron list is built around Brigone, Soldier of Miletus, being 1 in a white for a 2/2, Vigilance. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Brigone, put a 1/1 counter on her, tap her, remove a 1/1 counter from her, draw a card. Card draw in the command zone that's super easy to activate. Count me in. Oh, I should do that in the Scooby-Doo voice. Sorry. I don't want to do it. So every time she gets targeted by something, she gets a 1/1 counter. This will include auras, which is like which is the main way, pretty much only way we're going to be doing this in this deck. So let's talk about the auras we're going to be throwing on Brigone. We've got Commanding Presence, being 3 in a white for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature gets +2/+2, first strike, and when this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a 1/1 soldier token. Conviction, 1 in a white, enchantment aura. Enchant creature gets +1/+3, and pay 1 to return Conviction to your hand, which will interact great with the deck you'll find later. Griffin Guide, being 2 in a white to give +2/+2 in flying, and when the creature's put into the graveyard, you get a 2/2 Griffin. Spectral Steel, a 2-drop, give +2/+2. Valor of the Worthy, a 1-drop, give +1/+1, make a 1/1 when it dies. Mortal Obstinacy, being 1 white for an enchant creature gets 1/1. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it to destroy an enchantment. Hope Against All Hope, 2 in a white, enchant creature gets 1/1 for each creature you control. As long as enchant creature is a human, it has first strike. Light Wheel Enhancements, being 1 white for an enchant creature or vehicle. Enchant permanent gets +1/+1 and has vigilance, and when you're at max speed, you may cast the spell from your graveyard. Battle Mastery is a 2 in a white enchantment that gives double strike. Sentinel Eyes gives 1/1 in vigilance and can be cast from your graveyard. Ethereal Armor gives 1/1 for each enchantment you control, which is disgusting in here. Triclopene's Sight is 1 in a white for an enchantment aura with flash that gives 1/1 in vigilance. All That Glitters gives 1/1 for each enchantment and aura you control, which is busted. And Tempest Technique has Storm and gives 1/1 for each enchantment you control. Hey, baby, busted. Keep in mind that each of these is also going to give Brigone a 1/1 counter, so she's going to get big really quickly. We also probably need her to be evasive, so we run stuff like Angel's Gift that gives enchant creature flying and draws us a card. On Sarah's Wings gives 1/1 flying, vigilance, and lifelink, and Armored Ascension gives 1/1 for each planes we control, yuck, and flying. Absolutely disgusting. Now past this, our commander is super important because it's a Voltron deck, so we don't want people removing it all the time. So we have plenty of ways to give it hexproof or indestructible at instant speed that also targets her, so she'll just get another 1/1 counter. So if someone tries to deal with her, we can play cards like Regent's Authority, being 1 white, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If it's an enchantment creature or a legendary creature, instead put a 1/1 counter on it and it gets 1/1 until end of turn, protecting our commander from any kind of burn damage. Guild Scorn Ward gives our commander protection from multicolor. God's Willing can give our commander protection from any color until end of turn and scry 1. Beaming Defiance gives target creature we control 2/2 and hexproof until end of turn. Apostle's Blessing gives target creature protection from the color of our choice until end of turn. Blacksmith gives indestructible and hexproof until end of turn. Enter the Avatar state is fantastic in this deck, being 1 white instant. Until end of turn, target creature you control becomes an avatar, gains first strike, flying, lifelink, and hexproof. Great protection, or we can just use it to swing and bash face. Emerged Unscathed is a great defensive and offensive piece, giving protection at instant speed, but then rebounding on our turn to give protection during our turn. And then finally, my favorite card, one of my favorite cards ever printed, Brave the Elements. Choose a color. All of our white creatures gain protection from that color until end of turn. So this is all great. We have Burgone in play, we have her protected, we have her suited up and huge and evasive. Feels great. But while we're playing all those enchantments and, clearly running an enchantment deck, we're going to have some enchantment synergies in the deck. So stuff like Harvest Guard, Elsiads is really good, being 2 and a white, 2/3. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under our control, prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to target creature this turn, protecting our commander to swing freely. Favorite of Iros is 2 and a white for a 2/2 whenever an enchantment enters. Favored by Iros gains double strike until end of turn, so you could start throwing some enchantments onto that guy. Pious Wayfarer is 1 for a 1/2 whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control. Target creature gets 1/1 until end of turn. Again, fantastic for buffing our commander. Oromancer returns enchantments from our graveyard to our hand. Captivating Unicorn taps opponent's creatures when enchantments ETB. Optimistic Scavenger gives a 1/1 counter to any creature when an enchantment ETBs, which reads very, very good to me. Eidolon of Astral Winds is 2 and a white for a 2/4 Vigilance. Whenever Eidolon of Astral Winds or another enchantment you control enters, choose target creature you control. Until end of turn, that creature is a 4/4 with flying. Speaking of 4/4 with flying, Sigil of the Empty Throne gives us 4/4 angels whenever we cast enchantments. Open the Vault brings back all of our enchantments from grave back into play, and Ajani's Chosen turns each of our enchantments into a 2/2 cat. Which is to say, a pretty solid list, not only for being Voltron, but also for being mono-white Voltron. The commander's got built-in card draw, which we absolutely love, built-in ways to get huge over the course of the game. White has tons of ways to protect Burgone. Genuinely good Voltron list, let alone being for $10. If you want full deck lists for any of the decks we talked about today, you can find them down below in the description. If you want to check out the NixLotus.com website, you can use our Scryfall search optimization tool, or head over to the merch page and pick up the Teneb the Harvester sweatshirt. Super dope. And if you want to show some extra support, you can head over to YouTube members or Patreon members and become a member for as low as $1 a month and gain access to the deck submission form where you can submit your commander decks, and I will review them on Friday nights. Thank you guys for all the support. I really do appreciate the hell out of it. Make sure to check out that I made decks for Meaty Magic video and the 18 fun deck ideas video we did last Sunday and Monday. Also, check out either of the 2 videos on screen because YouTube thinks you might like them. Much love, guys. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.